Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Our Lady of Fatima, pray for us. Amen. Okay, can I have someone move the approval of the agenda? Item 2.1, moved by Trustee Marai, seconded by Trustee Rabenda. Questions, discussions, comments, concerns about the agenda? Seeing none. All in favor of the agenda? That's unanimous. Anyone opposed to the agenda? Seeing none. Item 2.2, can I have someone move the minutes? Trustee Ian Tomasi, seconded by Trustee Michael. Discussion about the minutes from last time. No questions. Can I call a vote then to approve the minutes? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed, it carries unanimously for the minutes from March 28th. Okay, item 3.1. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Student trustees of the Halton Catholic District School Board. Moved by Trustee Trites, seconded by Trustee Michael. Mr. McGillicuddy, would you care to provide some background on this?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, we're asking for the indulgence of the trustees assembled this evening, that this will be a little bit irregular in the sense that the student trustees are here this evening to speak to you about a proposal with respect to the election process that does not match the version that you have in front of you electronically. We have provided you with a paper copy. The premise here would be for them to give you an explanation and to offer you the opportunity to have questions, with the understanding that we would then have to go back again to make sure that our wording reflected what it was that the spirit of what they intended at another meeting subsequent to this one. And I realize that that's sort of irregular, but we're hoping that this will be a process that will help them share their thinking with you. So back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so one of you would like to take on giving us a discussion about this? Trustee Zapata?
Okay, perfect. So in the option you guys have in the policy committee meetings was kind of our first idea after a lot of thought and discussion with Mr. McGillicuddy and Mr. Overholt. Ingrid, Christina, and I put a lot of time and effort to come up with our second option, which is we think is a better one. We put a lot of thought into what we were going to bring to the table, in the fact what we thought was our struggles as a student trustee and how we could improve that for those going to take our spot in the years to come. We realized that next year all 3 student trustees will be in grade 12, so that means the year after that all 3 student trustees will be brand new trustees. We are all very new to the position when we come in, so we would like this proposal for more continuity and a more smoother transition for those who are just beginning off in our position. Ingrid, jump in if you want.
So as I look back at kind of what my first year as a student trustee was, and I think about kind of the challenges I've had along the way, I know that one of the biggest supports I've had in kind of learning how to navigate this position and being an effective student trustee was having Manuela's expertise that she brought in from the year before, and just being able to, no matter what we're dealing with, go back to Manuela and always say, Manuela, in your previous knowledge, how did how is this different? What do you think, based on 1 year expertise, what do you think are the best version of events are, or what do you think our best option is in this case? And just having her there to kind of guide us, Christina and I, was a very big asset for us and made our transition a lot smoother. so that we were able to learn our position and become effective student trustees earlier and be able to advocate for the students more efficiently. Our goal is always to have our students being advocated for at the optimal capacity. And in our Christina and I's first couple of months in this position, it was very difficult for us to advocate to that full capacity because we were learning our position. We were learning what board meetings were like. We were learning kind of all of the steps that are entailed in this position. And having this incumbent position included into the policy and ensuring that there's always someone like Manuela for our future trustees to kind of lean on and have that support and learn from in their position is going to create more effective student trustees and kind of voice the opinions of the students louder. So that was kind of the spirit behind our why we proposed these changes. And as you can see, we changed the really recently we've changed kind of what we were going to present at this board meeting because as Manuela said, in talking to Mr. Overholt and Mr. McGillicuddy, we realized that it was very important to have the three municipalities and our three geographical regions represented equally. And in our first option, we lose having those municipalities always represented. So that's why when we have our Appendix A, we kind of tried to give an idea of how this system would work in just a hypothetical census. It's So what we kind of said is what would happen in year one of us in implementing this policy is we would have an election where we elect one two-term trustee and two one-term trustees. How we decided who the two-term trustee is, whatever grade 10 has the most number of votes, that's who the two-term trustees will be. And then all the other candidates from Burlington they're not counted for, they've lost the election. And we look at the Oakville and North Halton trustees, and we choose the way we normally have the next one-term trustees for those municipalities. In the next year, Burlington is no longer voting on, the candidates from Burlington let me explain this better. In the next year, the candidate from Burlington is coming back. So the representation from Burlington is already met through the two-term position. So in the next year, Oakville and North Halton are voted upon, but this year we have one two-term trustee election and one one-term trustee election. So whichever candidate from those 2 years that gets the most amount of votes, that's who the two-term trustee from that municipality, either Oakville or North Halton, is going to be. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, so that's sort of how the Appendix A kind of outlines how we envision the first 3 years to go. We feel that this gives us it opens the opportunity to lead more like leadership opportunities, because now schools can put forward two candidates, one in grade 10 and one in grade 11. Everyone running in grade 11 would be made aware that they would only be guaranteed a one term. Everyone running in grade 10 are aware that if they have the most amount of votes, they are entitled to a two-term kind of system. That way each school can put up two candidates, which is what we feel would open leadership opportunities. We also would highly encourage students to obviously take part in other committees that we are taking part in right now. So for example, the French ad hoc committee and things like that. We could open up to those who weren't elected. We can give them those options, which is how we kind of envisioned to kind of continue the leadership within our board.
Is there anything else
Yeah, I guess we are open to questions.
That's kind of what we prepared.
Okay, so let's open the floor. Trustee Quinn.
Okay, my glasses weren't on. My first question is about the representation when you divide the Halton board into 3 districts. what is the number of students in each, and are they getting equal representation?
So the way we would kind of continue with the same setup as here. Each trustee would be 3 high schools per 1 trustee. Does that make sense? So, so it would be still Oakville, Burlington, Milton, and Georgetown. So we're assuming that we would continue with the same number of students. It would be the exact same kind of structure we have now, just that 1 person would be for 2 terms, and then 2 people would be elected as a 1 term. So we wouldn't change kind of the ratios trustee to students. Does that make sense?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Kind of why we felt that the municipality representation, the geographical area representation was very important is because Christina, Manuela, and I, we live in very different areas, and Christina's experience with her high school is very different than my experience, and just living in Georgetown and the conditions and like the busing and everything, it's very different in that area. So I don't know, I feel like it's not a matter of like number of students being equally like having like our board split up, like divide the number of students by 3 and then 1 person representing an equal amount of students. It's representing the geographical areas and the 3 concerns that those areas bring and the 3 different like situations that those students deal with in their lives, and having those represented equally.
Trustee Tripes?
This appendix is visually very good, thank you. Just wanted to clarify, when you speak of candidates of grade 9 and 10, or let's talk about candidates of grade 11, are they elected in grade 11 but they'll serve as a grade 12er? So candidates in 9 and 10 would be elected in 10, but would serve in the next year as a grade 11. So
Yes.
you're not really going to get any grade 9 or grade 10
No,
trustees.
which is something we talked to Mr. McGillicuddy, which we will obviously fix, is that we are aware that it has to be a senior level student, so it would be candidates in grade 10 would get elected for the subsequent year, so
Right.
they'd be in grade 11.
Thank you.
No problem.
Trustee Rabenda?
My concern is that, thank you, Paul. My concern is that this is a leadership opportunity, a very special leadership opportunity, and looks good on any resume that you should happen to apply for at universities. And over the 3-year period, you are giving this leadership opportunity to 7 individuals, unless you want to correct my math. Whereas before, as we stand now, we can have 9 students have that leadership opportunity. So we are decreasing the opportunity for 2 students to act as student trustees. Am I correct?
Yes, but one thing that Manuela, Christina, and I have talked about and kind of we feel like it's a big concern for us is the fact that when we go to our Senate elections, this year in particular, I know that I was there very early, and I was waiting. Senators were walking in. Oh, hi Ingrid. Like, how are you? How was this? How was that? They've known us for a whole year, and they've had a chance to work with us. And this year, it almost didn't feel fair. We immediately, Christina and I, had a one-up advantage on the other candidates. And while, like, on paper we say that we give the opportunity to more candidates, it's almost like we aren't giving them that opportunity because we already have as being re-elected trustees, we already have a head up on the other students because we have worked for a full year with Senate and we've had a full year of experience with Senate and they know us. So Yeah, I would just like to add to that, if that's okay. The previous years, actually if you go 4 years back, we kind of follow this anyway. So Jason served a 2-term, but that was elected. Chloe served a 2-term, I served a 2-term, and now Ingrid and Christina served a 2-term. However, the situation that happened this year was the fact that we only brought in 1 new trustee, which that would open the opportunity to always having 2 new people. Does that make sense? So this situation where Christina and Ingrid would get re-elected would probably not occur because we're always rotating, if that makes sense. Like Burlington would not get the chance to get a 2-term trustee again because we're only selecting a 2-term from Oakville and North Halton.
So I feel like that's a situation that can't really be avoided because it's been proven in the past that it happens regardless.
Trustee Rabenda?
It has definitely happened over the last few years. It hasn't always happened that way. The other possibility is saying student trustees run for one term only. They don't have a second term. So you have indicated your concerns, and I think they're very valid, about coming in and not knowing the ropes, shall we say. And so that means that more professional development would have to be done with the student trustees, whether it comes from staff or whether it comes from trustees. That would be determined, probably a combination of both, but probably staff. So, we can get around those things. My concern is very much that it's getting to be too much a closed shop when you say we're going from 9 trustees to 7. I think we need to have the leadership opportunity. If I could have 5 trustees each year, that would be great. The more students we can give opportunities to, the better.
Trustee Anselmosi?
Thank you. I think I'm glad to see you girls have really thought this out. However, I understand what Diane's saying, and actually this came up at Oxta where the different school boards were talking about student trustees, and if I'm correct, it was York that said they only have 2. A lot of the boards only have 2. And how they do it is whoever is on, I guess, for 1 year, because they change all the time, is that they always have to one automatically stays on for a second year and another new one, so they always have an experienced and a non-experienced. With 3, it's a little, I can see why you're trying to rotate it, so I'm really not sure where I feel about the whole thing, but I do think it's nice if we've got at least one trustee that runs a 2-year term. How that gets worked out, I don't know, but...
Trustee Michael and then Trustee Rowe.
Just a comment, I don't know how many people actually apply. Are there a lot of people that apply for the position?
So this year we had 7. Each high school is supposed... No, so the way we do it in elections is overall we had 7, but it's not 7 running for 3 positions. It's kind of, in this case it was 3, 2, and 2. Running for one position. Every high school is supposed to nominate 1 student, but obviously there are circumstances that prevent all of the trustees from coming out. So for example, this year I only ran against 1 person, and it's kind of you're just running against the people in your geographical area.
Just a follow-up, please. Because there's not like a crazy demand for the position, and I can see why with the workload, it's nice, I think, to have the continuity of having you guys around for 2 years, because by the time the new ones come in, it's late October, isn't it? Or is it right in September? It seems like it goes so fast, but I really like having you guys here for 2 years.
Trustee Rowe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with the girls that the continuity is a good thing, and as Arlene pointed out, there's most boards only have 2, including our coterminous board only has 2, and it's a massive board. So I think the system works well, and so we've just wanted to make sure that we change the wording from municipality, because there's no municipality of North Halton. So people have been using different things, whether it's district or area or whatever. So change that in the policy.
Trustee Quinn?
Thank you. I think I need a little more education. If a student trustee was not able to fulfill a 2-year mandate, how would we fill that? And what happens if they don't live up to the expectations of the fellow trustees? What do we do in that case?
Okay, so we have thought out a lot about this. We read over the policy that's in place right now, which states that there would be a by-election. We were thinking that would be a really good system to have as well, where there would be a by-election, but a grade 11 would take that position. So for example, if Ingrid, I use you as an example, if Ingrid did, for some reason, for whatever her circumstance is, she says, I cannot fulfill my second term, we would elect a grade 11 in her place to fulfill her last term. However, there would be, like in the election that just took place, there would be someone else elected as a 2-term. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. We also considered the fact on how, since we picked the grade 10 with the most like votes, we would go with the one with the second most votes and call them up to the position for the following year, if that makes sense.
Superintendent Overholt?
To you, Mr. Chair. The one thing, if trustees decide that this is a route that they will go, certainly we'd have to be careful of the wording in regards to the term of office, because in the regulation it does state that the term for a student trustee starts August 1st of the year in which they're elected and ends July 31st of the following year. So not saying that it can't be done, but it's a matter of how that person would be elected the second year. It is a one-year term, but it's a matter of kind of making sure that the policy is worded so that that person can be elected a second year, because it is in the regulation that it is a one-year term, to be able to make sure that that happens.
If I may, through Mr. Chair, we've had some discussions about that, that the language of the policy doesn't talk about a term any longer than 1 year, but it is silent on the possibility of consecutive terms. So to Superintendent Overholt's point, the language would be crafted such that it spoke of who is eligible to be elected in that second term, in order to fulfill and or not to contravene the expectations of the legislation.
Trustee Zapata?
I'd also like to add kind of like a comment. This being my second term and pretty much coming to an end, I feel like this structure would work best because I had my first year and I had Chloe as a mentor, which I was very grateful to have. I also learned a lot on my own, which was very nice as well, which I also gave kind of the opportunity for Ingrid and Christina. There have been times where they did things on their own and they learned by their mistakes or on their own, which I feel is like the best way to learn. So that's kind of how the incumbent position we envision would do for the continuous years. With Ms. Rabenda's comment, I did at a dinner mention to Paula Dawson on how to kind of help the trustees transition easier and different improvements. However, I feel that in the position there are times where you need to know or learn how to handle things that maybe you guys as trustees or as adults can't really teach us. We'd have to learn by ourselves. There have been many late phone calls, us three discussing on our initiatives and how we can do this and how we can do that, and I can never really picture on how an adult or a teacher or a parent could have helped me learn that or give me that advice if it wasn't for Chloe, or in their case if it wasn't for me and my experience. And something I kind of tell kind of my parents and stuff when they try to guide me is my position here is very different than kind of how you guys see it, and how me in my position is very different than what everybody else sees it. And I feel that since we're students and we're in the same position, we can relate more. And I feel that that can only kind of really be accomplished if we have this incumbent position where we're like a student to student kind of mentor system we have going. Like, that's just my input with my second year.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to touch upon the fact that Christina and we weren't exactly thrown off of the deep end. We got a lot of support from OSTA. We got our meetings with Ms. Michael and Ms. Dawson, and they helped us out and talked about what this position is and the details of the position and everything like that. And we did get debriefed and everything. And coming into this position, I didn't come into it without knowing anything. In that sense, so when we were talking to people in general, they were asking us, well, do you feel like you're not supported enough? I do feel like as a student trustee in my first year, I was supported, and when I had questions, I could come to adults and people around the table that could help me. The incumbent position is it's a support system that's in place for them. That's not as much as like the information part of the job and knowing Robert's rules, like the stuff that you learn, you know, sitting around the table. It's about kind of learning how to navigate the other sides of it and all aspects of the position, because we have our board aspect, we also have the Senate-led initiatives, and we also have the provincial aspect of it, and we don't have the same people in those cases. You know, it's our Senate is one group of people, board is one group of people, OSTA is another group of people. So just having someone by our sides along the whole process of it would be very helpful for us.
Trustee Marai, and then Rabenda.
Just two comments. The only thing, it's somewhat similar to Chair Rabenda, but and that is in year 2 actually there are 2 types of students who would never be able to run again for trustee, and that's for student trustee, and that's the Burlington student who is going into grade 11 next year, and the Oakville student going into grade 11 next year. So those 2 students, we'd be saying you have no more opportunities to become student trustee. So that's something we should consider. Also, you say that a grade 9 or 10 student would be eligible for the 2-year term. Are there something that should be done everywhere, but are there any term limits for student trustees? Would you allow a student trustee to run for 3 years?
Point of information, Mr. Chair. Students who are in grade 9 are not eligible because the language of the legislation says the student must serve in a year when they are a senior student of the board. So a grade 10 can run for election in the spring of their grade 10 year, but the term they actually serve is when they are a senior as a grade 11 or 12. So a student in grade 9 can't actually get a position. This is just an oversight as the way it was crafted before it came here. But as I said, we will need to check the language to make sure it meets the needs of the legislation, one of which is that a grade 9 student cannot be elected because they must be a senior, i.e. grade 11 or 12, in order to serve.
Trustee Rabenda?
Appreciate, ladies, your many contributions and your skills and talents. However, I cannot vote for anything that will decrease the number of students who will get a leadership opportunity. Okay, as a trustee, as a teacher, I cannot do anything that would ever hurt the number of students that are going to have a leadership opportunity. And I'm still talking, and we can have 9 trustees in 3 years, whereas this way we get 7. So there are 2 students that are not going to have that opportunity, and so that's where I'm having some difficulty. Though I do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Quinn, and then I have to try and move the process on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify Trustee Rabenda's position, it's not that 9 students have the opportunity, it's potentially 9 students. So I just want to clarify that. There's no guarantee that we'll have different faces around this table if this changes. But the way you stated was that you are actually taking away 2 opportunities, but that's not necessarily true. I'm saying there are potential. Yeah, but you didn't say potentially. I just wanted to qualify that.
Trustee Zapata.
Just to clarify with Paul's point, so for example, in the second year, we're not eliminating the grade 11. We're saying that this is just kind of like we just kind of put in something. There's grade 10 and 11 candidate. So if the 2-term position went to North Halton, it could go to a grade 11 in Oakville to serve the 1 year, or a grade 10 in Oakville to serve. So there technically will be 4 candidates. Does that make sense? 1 from grade 10, 1 from grade 11, 1 from grade 10, 1 from grade 11, and then the top grade 10 would get the 2-year, and then the second top would get the 1 year. Does that make sense? Okay, just to clarify.
Okay, and then there's also the stipend coming into play here that can be an incentive for some people. Regarding the process, I mean, I see several aspects of the parts of the policy here. They're not all incorporated into the policy yet. I don't think it's ready to be voted upon as an action item right now. So what I'm asking for, speaking of Robert's Rules of Order, which you mentioned earlier, this is really more of a self-study program for all of us. What I'm asking now is for a trustee to move to defer this to the next policy committee meeting, and use words that will, because I think there are 3 pieces of paper here that, and some of them are not in the policy. So, can I ask for a trustee to move it and second it to the next policy committee meeting?
Could we rather ask that this policy, as the student trustees have laid out and described to us, be put into a format that we could vote on in the next actual board meeting, so that they can either have an answer before or after their term comes to an end? I'd like to see this decided while they're still sitting at this table.
I don't have a problem with that, so that would bring it back to next week. Well, then I would need a motion. I need a motion to do that, and a seconder, and a vote. I'll call a vote on it.
Okay, then I'd like to move through the chair that this policy be sent back to staff and brought to us for a vote at the next full board meeting.
With the documented changes and all the...
With all the changes
Can you put in
presented.
some words to include the Appendix A and be a little bit more specific, please?
With the information presented by the student trustees to senior staff and included in the policy to be voted on at the next board meeting.
Next week. Next board meeting is...
And what if we went to the next policy meeting and then put it on the... What's the timing? It would still make it?
You still think about it?
I still want to keep my
Think
motion.
for a minute. You want to keep it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for Trustee Quinn's motion? Trustee Michael? Okay, so we're calling a vote on... Paul?
And I still have one piece of clarification that's, I just want to understand something, and that is, when it comes to the actual vote, you said that the top candidate would receive 2 years, 1 year would go for the next one based on the number of votes. It's the number of votes overall in the various municipalities. So let's say that you had, I'm just using an example. Let's say you had North Halton with 500 votes, and you had Burlington with 200 votes. The North Halton candidate would receive a 2-year term, and the other one would receive the 1 year. So my only concern with that is if the voting populations of the various areas are, so I just want to clarify that.
Information, through Mr. Chair, the way the votes are conducted for the student trustees, there's only 4 votes per school. So when the Senate meets, the student Senate meets to elect student trustees, there are 4 votes per school. So the number of students who live in the community doesn't change the weighting of any contribution from any one individual school.
There are 4 votes per school, but there are different amounts of schools in each district. So an area, and this is a question.
There's 3 high schools per, yeah.
Mr. Overholt.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The only thing, I guess, to consider...
Trustee...
affected communities. All of this will obviously happen, one would assume, and it would be in the procedure. But just from a public-facing perspective, don't we want the public to see these steps in the policy so that they see the ultimate decision is coming from trustees, and we're the ones held responsible for it? And to me, it just seems like there's a bit of a cutoff there, and I would like, if that's is that what you've done here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In regards to final decision, in 1.2, it does clarify that the Board of Trustees is responsible for making the final decision. So that's stated within the policy. If we want to put in the final recommendations are presented to the board, those types of aspects, we certainly can put it in the policy. However, we do believe that they're procedural in nature, but certainly we can certainly add that to the policy.
And the other one is just board staff informs the affected communities of the final outcome, because communication is, I think of these decisions are our purview, and we've had big items we've needed to communicate to communities before, like field use and lighting and all those things that people really care about, and I would like it to be and maybe it is in the new purple area.
And through you, Mr. Chair, what we certainly can do is put an overarching principle in regards to communication in there. For sure, that would be something that is a principle that we need to incorporate in there. So we can do that.
Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So on page 22, so the deleted, you're taking out that trustees are invited to attend committee and community consultation session meetings as observers. And why are we taking that out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that trustees are able to attend any committee meeting. They're welcome. So it seemed to be redundant to put it in. Again, if it's the wish of the Board of Trustees, we certainly can leave it in, but we just thought it was a redundant statement that you're always able to attend those meetings.
Trustee Quinn.
Just for clarification, as any committee that is under the auspices of this board, we are, in the role of trustees, able to access those meetings as observers, if not as representatives, right?
Or you could be unobservant and attendant. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. I guess, as Trustee Marai was saying, that if I'm a parent and I'd be reading this, if a boundary was happening, I'd go to this policy to read. So that's the first one I think parents would look at. So the more clarity we can give there, that they know we're invited and that we have input and our final recommendations are presented to the board for approval. I think those are important, transparent steps that parents will want to know right away. So I would propose keeping those. And I did have another question. I can't find it here, but I wrote it in my notes where it says the parental input is only electronic. Does somebody remember reading that? No. I don't see it here now, but I thought that parents should be able to give their input in a way that's most convenient for them.
That's not a constraint of the current policy, is it, Mr. Overall?
I'd have to take a look, Trustee Carabella. Don't remember us limiting that, but I'd have to take a look through that.
Anyone else? This motion is for the policy to be forwarded to stakeholder input and return to June 13th meeting, policy committee meeting. Trustee Carabella.
my mic was off. Trustee Massey found it. It's on page 22, the last bullet in blue. So it was edited for clarification. The community is invited to provide input to the school boundary review via written comments, and other electronic means of communication. Thank you.
Which could mean Skype as well, I suppose.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, and that refers to, in the new policy 1.4, we've overarching says endorses and welcomes the input of members of the Catholic school community into the school boundary review process. So we're not tying our hands as to what that would look like. We're just saying that that's important and we're going to seek that.
Trustee Marai.
Just to move this ahead, can I just make a motion? If we want to put this out for stakeholder, or you guys need some direction as to the specific points we want to bring in. So why don't I point out the points and see if everyone agrees, and we can just move this along. So first is the last green point: board staff informs the affected community of the final board approved recommendations. Then 3 up, I go the final recommendations are presented to the board for approval. That's another one that probably should be in there. And the 2 above that, through the school's information and the report outlining the final recommendations must be presented to the board. And on page 22, every green point. Yeah.
You want to move that? Move that those points be included?
Yes, please.
A seconder for that? Trustee Quinn? So we'll talk about those. Mr. Overholt.
To you, Mr. Chair. And certainly we want to make sure that the public is aware of these statements. Part of the rationale to create an administrative procedure is that these are very procedural in nature, and that's why we're creating a procedure in the policy. It references the procedure and making sure that this procedure goes along with the policy. So I guess the point of having the procedure is to create that process piece to show what those steps are, and the policy should kind of rely on kind of the overarching principles behind the policy, and that's why we were trying to separate the two. I certainly see a couple of the points where we can incorporate those as overarching principles to put in there, but to put all the green, I guess it kind of defeats the purpose of having the procedure. So I just put that out for your thoughts.
Trustee Marai.
And I'd agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that it's a boundary review process policy. Like, that's even more sensitive when it comes to the public, and I think we need to outline these step-by-step approaches, create an even more inclusive procedure, more exhaustive list in the procedure itself. But I don't know anyone in the public who would not say they all would like to see it directly in the policy and know that the trustees are the ones who voted for it and decided on the policy itself. Because at any of these points, the Director of Education could say, and I don't think our wonderful director would, but let's just say at any one of these points, they could make the entire process a lot easier for themselves, because you guys go through a ridiculous amount of work putting on one of these things, and say, well, we're going to cut this one, this one, this one, this one, and though we'd find out about it, we would have to go back to the policy to actually make the changes. This is just too sensitive a policy to do that with.
Okay, so I'm treating this like an amendment where Paul has moved that we include the green points and some others. And I'm going to be calling, the next vote I call will be on that. And then after that vote is taken, I'm going to vote on the main resolution. Ask for a vote on the main resolution. Is that clear? Any other comments or discussion about Paul's amendment? Okay, I'm going to call a vote on Paul's amendment. Just a show of hands, and then I'll ask for opposed. So, all in favor? Is anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, so now we're back to the main motion, which is to send this policy as amended for stakeholder input and return to the June 13th policy meeting, not a board meeting, but to the policy meeting for further review, so you guys get a chance to debate this again. Is there any further discussions or questions about this? If not, I'll call a vote. Right.
My suggestion was going to be we make that amendment and then put it out for consultation and then have it come to the board. But,
Yeah, it's gonna go out with your amendments in it.
right, and then it's gonna come to the policy, back to the policy committee itself. Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
Sorry.
All in favor? Is there anyone opposed?
I'm jumping the gun.
Okay, it's unanimous. Mr. Overholt.
Sorry, through Mr. Chair. I just want clarification that we are going to amend. Are we bringing it back to policy before we send out to stakeholder so that you see that, or are we going to send out the amendments and then for stakeholder?
We're sending out the amendments
clarification.
as Paul outlined them in his motion. That's what's going out for stakeholder comment. And then after it goes out for stakeholder comment, it comes to us on June 13th. Right? Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover for item 3.3, policy I-42? Moved by Trustee Quinn, seconded by Trustee Rabenda. Discussion, please. Or can I have some background from Mr. Overholt first, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The policy has been reviewed. It was last reviewed in 2014. Our committee did not see any need to make any further changes, so we are putting it out to just to be forwarded for approval that it has been reviewed.
Okay, so there's no changes?
No changes.
And so all in favor of sending this to the board meeting for official approval? All in favor? Or questions and discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on page R26, the fourth bullet, a request to travel out of province must be submitted at least 60 days prior to the date. So who is it being submitted to? To the board. Okay, I just... Yeah, I just thought to the board could be included there to make it more clear.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Trustee Quinn?
If the staff member is going outside of continental North America, then they come to trustees. Otherwise, the director approves.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Concerns? Paul? It's on the agenda. It's a motion to put it, the motion is to put it to next board meeting. We can fulfill the requirement of our policies to be reviewed every 3 years. Okay, so seeing no further questions, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed. Okay, can I have a mover for item 3.4, policy 2-13, psychoeducation, psychological testing of individual students, moved by Trustee Marai, seconded by Trustee Ian Tomasi. And Superintendent Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm joined this evening by our Chief of Psychology, Oliver Foisey. The policy presented to you is basically encapsulates legislative changes that have come into place when it comes to testing, assessment. So I use testing because that's a word that's been changed as well, just to be in line with best practices that we are referring to as assessment. So the changes are basically updates to legislation, including the Personal Health Information Protection Act, updates to PPMs, and the Psychology Act. So they're, from a psychology perspective, housekeeping in nature, but Oliver Foisey would be happy to answer any specifics about any changes to the policy itself.
Okay, questions, please. Trustee Quinn.
Thank you. Without having read the Act and what changes have been made, Are there any positives or negatives in those changes that are affecting the outcomes of our students in either way that we should be happy about or concerned about?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee Quinn, for your question. I would say that they reflect positive changes in terms of the increased professionalization of psychoeducational assessment, in terms of having professionals who are either regulated health professionals or supervised by regulated health professionals perform those assessments, who have to abide by specific standards of professional conduct and applicable legislation which protects the rights of the students and their parents, as well as the privacy of the information that is gathered through the assessment.
Trustee Carabella.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just maybe I caught the word test in the purpose, that it should say assessment instead of test. So conducting, pardon? So it's the part in the purpose, and it says,
So in the purpose, that was referring to the revision of the existing policy, and if you'll notice in the recommendation, it does recommend that the title of the policy be changed from testing, psychoeducational testing, be changed to psychoeducational assessment of individual students. So the reference is above in purpose in the title in reference to the policy as it exists, and the recommendation would be to change in congruence with the policy.
that's right, but I'm just saying that here it says, underneath the purpose, I just think you missed one where it says that their confidentiality of test results, but wouldn't it be assessment results if we're trying to change the wording? So it's page 28, and in the purpose, it's in the black lettering just before the last line that's erased. Right here.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Just caught that, so.
Anyone else? I do have a question about this policy. So generally, what triggers an assessment to occur? Is it because it is requested by the teacher or by the family? I'm sure the student would not ask for one. And then once that occurs, are there any regulations or protocols for how long it takes for a test to be, or for an assessment to be done?
Sure. So from a process perspective, we work closely with families, and we are always sharing information as best we can. The families are sharing what they have from physicians, work that they've been doing with community agencies, and what their observations are, with what our teachers are observing, what our assessments are showing at school. And it's really through the work at the school with the interventions that we put in place, and then through the conversations with the parents and using our professional judgment, we determine whether a student we would like to find out more information about using a psychoeducational assessment, because our work up to that point in the school is really focused on academic. So the psychoeducational allows us to look at cognitive profiles, how students think, how they reason, how they develop language. And so that process really is in consultation with parents, in consultation with community partners, and we go forward through our process. A recommendation gets made through our special education consultants, and it gets passed on to the psychology department. In terms of wait lists, that's something that we're very sensitive to. We recognize that when a student gets recommended for a psychoeducational assessment, we want to do so in as timely a manner as possible. Wait lists, other boards around the province are upwards to up to 3 years in some boards. We have made a concerted effort in a couple of ways to make sure that we're keeping our wait lists much more reasonable. Number one, we were able to make an investment, as you know, with an addition of a psychologist to Dr. Nicole Law to our team in the fall, and a big part of that was to help us with a lot of the work we've been doing around the board, using our psych staff to help with programming and planning, but also with an eye toward the wait list as well. Number two, we're always looking for ways in which we can have efficiencies with our staffing and our use of funds throughout the year with an eye towards summer assessments. I'm happy to say that again this year our plan is to be able to distribute summer assessments to our staff in order to keep our wait list down. So you asked the question about is there policy and legislation. There is not per se, but we're always trying to keep our wait list as small as possible. Those are the two ways in which we've tried to address them. Oliver, would you be able to speak to where we are right now in terms of what our wait list is for our students?
In terms of our current wait list, we've had a number of tricky situations this school year in terms of staff illness. So our wait list is about between 12 and 13 months on average right now. We hope that we can reduce that in the first half of next school year.
Trustee Quinn?
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I think my first question was, does this policy necessarily mean that we will be required to increase staffing levels? And secondarily, how many students does a 12 to 13 month waiting list entail?
Mr. Brown?
There's nothing in the policy that says that we're required to increase staffing levels. We look at increasing staffing levels in order to try to meet needs as best we can. And with the growing board and a growing population, we have over the course of the last 6 years, we've grown tremendously in terms of size, but until we added Dr. Law to our team, we had remained at our staffing profile. So the caseloads were growing as our numbers were growing, but our staff wasn't keeping up with that. The second question about the total number of students, that's what you're asking, or that are currently on our wait list, Oliver?
I'm sorry, I don't have it top of my head. I would think that it's around 200.
Trustee Carabell is next.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Chair. And so you want to reduce the wait list. What is your optimum, or what would you like to reduce it to that you would feel that gives students the best advantage to getting assessed? We know it can't be 1 month, but like what would you say is something to aim for?
Ideally, I would see our wait list down to a time where we can see a student within the school year, or within 6 to 8 months. That I think that would be reasonable.
Trustee Quinn?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the board agrees, I'm wondering if we could get from the senior staff some numbers as to what it would cost to outsource those kind of assessments so as to get rid of that backlog and to cut that wait time down. Even 4 months sounds like a long period of time to be waiting. I'm not necessarily sure, but I'd like to know what the cost would be if we outsourced that to cut into the backlog.
If I may, just as an example, in terms of the costs, when we do summer assessments and we offer the opportunity to our 10-month staff to work through the summer, we're paying staff $1,250 per assessment. If you go to the community and you contract out private assessments, that cost would be significantly higher. I would say that cost of a psychoeducational assessment at private practice is between $2,000 and $3,000.
We can do them in-house with our staff for a little less than half the cost, and our staff are registered with the College of Psychologists or supervised by registered with the College of Psychologists, so more than capable and qualified to be able to do so at less than half of the cost. It is just remains a numbers game.
personal question, have any of these been submitted in the budget? I mean, we've seen presentations, and I know there's a section for special ed. Is there something in the budget a current budget proposal for that?
Mr. Chair, we were able to identify the ability to be able to make an increase to staff in the middle of the school year this year. So we saw that as a positive step forward. As Oliver was noting, while we were able to by adding a psychologist, we had one existing staff going on a multiple month leave for medical reasons, and Dr. Law's joining our team has been modified slightly because of the medical situation, which is being resolved right now. So we do see ourselves as actually being in a good position to be able to be moving toward that 6 to 8 month goal within the next year, especially with the addition of our summer assessments. So, Mr. Chair, we did not put an additional request in the budget because we felt that the addition of 1.0 psychologists to our team was a significant addition to our staff.
Trustee Carabell?
Did you say the summer assessments is something new that's starting this year?
No, we are able to do summer assessments most years. It is contingent on funds, and things happen during the year sometimes that in which we're spending up to our budget, but we're always trying to be efficient with the work that we do, whether that comes with being able to save money through staff or programs. And so we have been able to provide summer assessments. 1 year, 2 summers ago, we were not able to do so, but consistently for the years in between. For us this year, to give an example, we were able to identify funds specifically for summer assessments, and through some other number crunching, we were able to add to that total even within the last week or so. So we're always trying to find ways in which we have the staff who are willing to do it, and we just need to have the funds to pay for it. We're comfortable with what we're able to provide in the summer this year, but we have staff that can do it, and if we can pay for them, we do take advantage of their expertise and their willingness. So no, it's not new, and it is something that we do try to work toward.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, I call a vote to have this policy's name changed and sent to, with amendments, to the May 16th board meeting next Tuesday. So I'll call a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? I see no one opposed. We'll see that one next week. So staying on the theme of special education, can I have a mover for item 3.5, inclusion and range of placement options? Trustee Marai moving and Trustee Rabenda is seconding. Discussion, please.
Just for the trustees' information, very minimal changes to this. There was only 2, and they're noted in the policy, mostly because this policy continues to encapsulate what we do. It shows the range of placements that the board currently offers. It is an accurate reflection of the range of placements as offered through our special ed programs throughout the board. The 2 changes, one was just a tweaking of language in the application and scope, so just to support the needs of all students identified as exceptional under the Education Act. And the second change was on the second page, just the addition of an additional reference to PPM 156, supporting students, transitions for students with special needs, as supporting legislation for the point. But really, beyond that, this continues to be an accurate reflection of the work that we do, and the changes submitted are very, very minimal.
Thank you. Is PPM 156 a new memo, or is it an existing one?
It's an existing one.
Trustee Quinn.
Just procedural, do we usually quote memos in policies, or do we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any applicable regulations or sections of the Ed Act are policy memos. Okay, so seeing no further discussion or comments, I'm going to call a vote to send this to the May 16th board meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? I see no one opposed. Can I have a mover for item 3.6, policy 220, child abuse and protection of students? Moved by trustee Antomasi, seconded by trustee Michael. Discussion, please. Background first from Mr. Brown.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm joined this evening by our Chief of Social Work, Patricia Codner, who is one of our key contacts and liaises with Halton CAS. The policy that's provided is a big picture policy that continues to prioritize the safety and well-being of all students, recognizes that the Halton Children's Aid Society legislated mandate in accordance with the Child and Family Services Act, and that the Child and Family Services Act and the Criminal Code of Canada supersede all other acts. So in this regard, the policy does remain current and provides the appropriate mandate for the protection of all students by HCDSB staff. Minor revisions have been made, including document titles and references to the administrative policy, but the changes from a big picture policy perspective, changes are minimal, and it does continue to meet the needs of what we do as a system.
Thank you. Trustee Trites.
So on page 36, the electronic, bullet 3, the board recognizes the Halton Children's Aid Society. Could you confirm, is there still a Catholic Children's Aid Society in the region? Not in Halton?
Sorry, not in Halton.
Where would the nearest one be?
Hamilton. Hamilton.
Yes, I understand. Is that something that we could, or a boundary, within a boundary we could work with a Catholic Children's Aid Society?
But
even though it's not Halton?
No, we'd have to work with Halton.
And that's
Children's
mandated?
Aid. That's mandated.
Where's that mandated, if I may ask? Just so I understand the process, please.
Each region has an assigned body, which ours is Halton CAS. I guess it would be cited in the Child and Family Services Act with regards to the regional body. It wouldn't state, in fact, it doesn't state the Catholic or non-Catholic.
I guess my concern is we're a Catholic school board. We do have Catholic Children's Aid Society. The Catholicity can make a difference. I know from, not my personal experience, but from other experience. So whatever the services are offered to kids, even to the extreme of being removed from the home, the religious component can be very... Is there any way we can check on that? Or does anybody else feel that we should be looking for Catholic Children's Aid services first and foremost?
So
it's kind of a nice coherence.
Totally understanding, and your Trustee Trites, your points about, when there are Catholic Children's Aid organizations out there. As a region, we don't have the option to go outside of our region to be working with. So if there was, Catholic Children's Aid Society in Toronto, we couldn't avail ourselves of those services because there is a Children's Aid Society here in Halton. So we don't have the option to be able to pick and choose which one we work with. If there isn't one in Halton, then that's not something as a school board that we can avail ourselves of.
So that's written in the Act somewhere, right? Like there is regulation behind that? I'm not trying to put you to the point. I'm just saying we know that for a fact that there isn't sort of, to keep things coherent?
Yeah, we do know that we do work within our region. Like that is, we don't...
We don't or we can't?
We can't.
Absolutely, there's no, because obviously there's going to be more public child agencies than there are Catholics. So it doesn't keep the seamness of it together?
And maybe, just as an assurance to Trustee Trites and all trustees, is that when our work with our staff, we're Catholic, and everything that we do is through that lens. And all that work that we're working with is that as a Catholic organization, as a Catholic lens, we're in partnership with our community partners. So part of that partnership is their understanding and respect of the work that we do in Catholic schools, and our staff always operating from that perspective as well. We have a positive relationship with our Children's Aid Society, and they're very respectful of Catholic education, and our work is their work supporting us in Catholic education. So while it's not a matter of the board picking and choosing, going outside, while we do work with Halton Children's Aid, we definitely do so with a Catholic lens, with a very respectful relationship with our community partners.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We can get some further clarification on that if...
through you, Mr. Chair. It is only Halton that we can work with. We'll get the actual context as to why we are with them, so we'll find that out for you and make sure that we pass it to you.
I just wanted to add, though, that despite not having a Catholic Children's Aid Society, all Children's Aid Society, whether Catholic or non-Catholic, must adhere to meeting the needs of the child with regards to their religious belief. And those are written in their actual policy and procedure. I think they're even in Toronto. They're looking to amalgamate. It's at the end of the day, whatever religion a child is, it must be accommodated, whether or not they're in Children's Aid under the Catholic lens or not. But to your point, I'm sure I can get the regulations to provide to this table.
Thank you, good to know.
Trustee Rabenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to concur with Superintendent Brown. I've worked with the Halton Children's Aid. They are very respectful, and you wouldn't know that it's not a Catholic organization. They do exactly the same for our children as they would do for any other children, and it's a very difficult job. Thank you.
Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in point number 10, I'm just wondering, as we read that, it's if an employee or volunteer is charged with or convicted, that they will then perform no duties involving contact with pupils pending withdrawal of the charge. I understand that for an employee, probably because of the union, they would stay here. I'm just wondering why we would keep a volunteer, or what is the reasoning behind keeping a volunteer if there could be a risk, even, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's read that the volunteer would not be in contact, just as the employee. We would make sure that they would probably be on home duty. They wouldn't be anywhere near children while that investigation is going on. The same would be in case of the volunteer, until some kind of determination is made, whether a charge is made or it's not. That's when we would let the volunteer know that they would not be allowed to be in contact with children in our system.
They could still stay in the system. So if they were charged, they could still stay in the system as a volunteer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. If we had an employee or a volunteer that was charged and it was a criminal charge against them, they would not be volunteering in our system.
I don't know. When I read this, that just wasn't clear to me.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe, so it's the last statement. The principal shall ensure that the employee or volunteer perform no duties involving contact with the pupils pending the withdrawal of the charge. So if it's withdrawn, then certainly they'd be able to. Discharge following a preliminary inquiry. So again, it's discharge. There's no charge, or the stay of the charge or acquittal. So it means that they're not charged. There's no conviction against them. Correct.
Superintendent Brown.
And also, just to further reassure Trustee Carabella, when these things happen, whether staff or volunteer, they are immediately out of our schools until we can do a proper follow-up. We always, the language there is to reflect the fact that an investigation is conducted, and there's while our err is always on the side of caution in making sure there is no contact, and whether that's an employee being at home or a volunteer not being in the school, we always err on that, but we also let the process work itself out. So, if there is no, once we get through that process, so I want you to be very assured that even in situations when an accusation is made, we act very swiftly.
Trustee Quinn.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. There was a story in the news last week where a student and another board the wrong student was given to a children's aid worker, and it caused some fear amongst the other parents. I'm wondering what protections we might have in our schools to ensure it doesn't happen in our board.
I can speak to that. That was a most unfortunate situation. The student, what I understand is that the child that was handed over has the same name as the child that the CAS was seeking for at the school. I guess what we would have to look at, and your point's well taken because we've never encountered this before, is that what we have to do is marry the name of the child with their OEN number, with their date of birth, because with the same name, that's not sufficient to do proper identification. And that's why we have the OEN number to ensure that we're dealing with the right student. And so it wasn't the school that erred in some respect, because the worker should have then double-checked the information that they have with regards to the student that we're collecting.
But according to legislation, the school has to abide by the requests of the children's aid. Because
Yes, but this is more of a procedural thing in terms of making sure you're handing over the right student and you're collecting the right student. I suppose, I guess this is where we'll have to put things in place to remind the system that we need to go further than just the name, because we have a lot of students with double the same name. Now we should be checking the OEN number.
So should that be in procedure, policy, or somewhere in between?
Is there an accompanying procedure for this policy? Okay. Trustee.
Chair. Patricia, does the CAS worker not have to hand over paperwork to the principal identifying that child?
Yes, but if they're just using the name,
No address.
It wouldn't necessarily. Well, sometimes the address is on the paperwork, but it's really just the name. I don't think they handed paper over. What they do is identify who they are with their badge to say, I'm here to collect a student by such name. But again, to your point, maybe we have to have something more transparent, and the handover will be more something that they would sign off on, that we've given the child, the correct child with the OEN number.
Thank you.
Just for clarification too, CAS is just starting to implement a system that utilizes OEN number. That was not the case before, so they're using a operating system now that they will be able to utilize the OEN number for said reason.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So the motion here is to move this policy with amendments to the May 16th board meeting next week. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, I'm going to call a vote now. All in favor? Anyone opposed? I see no one opposed. Item 3.7, can I have a mover for 2-40, bullying prevention and intervention? Moved by Trustee Quinn, seconded by Trustee Rowe. Background, Mr. Brown, Ms. Pinelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure this evening to bring forth a housekeeping in terms of just to implement some of the ministry changes that have come our way in terms of bullying prevention over the course of the last time that we've brought this to the board. And if you take a look, it's very minor. It's really more to reflect the Education Act and PPM 144, which is the bullying and prevention and intervention policy that is the framework that is coming from the ministry, as well as incorporating the language of positive school climate that we adhere to and have incorporated in and have been practicing in our schools, as well as including the mandate that is outlined that all schools will have and follow the board's bullying prevention plan and have their own in place, and continue to include what we currently do, and that is the awareness raising strategy. Next week I will be bringing to the board, obviously, see the problem, be the solution, which is a board-wide initiative that we're very proud of and we continue to grow. And so to incorporate that language that we've been already doing over the course of the last few years. So it's really just housekeeping and reflection of what we need to align in terms of ministry language. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Trustee Marai.
You no longer specify Bill 13 because it's now part of the Education Act, correct?
Any other comments?
Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So it talks about a safe school team. Do all our schools have this?
Yes, that is also outlined in our Safe Schools policy, which came up for revision last year at this time. So this is in alignment with that policy, which every school is mandated and required to have a Safe Schools action team.
Trustee Quinn?
Do we have any running tally or measurement of bullying incidents in our schools, and is there a way that we can monitor them and have reports to us in the public session?
Yes, we do. We have a survey that's administered every 2 years, and yes, we have brought forth in terms of the results from the survey in the past, and each school gets their own results. Tell Them From Me survey, that's the title of it. It has been brought to the board a few times, and yeah.
So I wasn't talking about a survey of students. I'm talking about complaints to principals or to superintendents if there have been actions taken against students who have been found to be bullying, those kind of reports.
Superintendent?
Again, those would be dealt with individually by the superintendent and the principal at the school. I do want to caution trustees that I know that perhaps a number of incidences may have come to your attention. And as we all know that at times there's more to the story than meets the eye. And so therefore, some of those in terms of the entire details, they would be an individual case that we would be more than happy to share to have that discussion. But there is no tally per se in terms of what, but we do have suspensions, absolutely. Suspensions are our data. We have that, and we have them through the students' voice, which is also a very important voice in terms of how they're telling us as a system the bullying incidences that are happening.
So there's no kind of aggregate statistics on bullying. I think that's what your question is referring to, Trustee Quinn. Is that correct? Or even from our own data collection, aggregate statistics on what occurs. Director Dawson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Only the suspensions that were suspended for bullying would we have stats on. The anecdotal or the incidents that happen at the school where the principal investigates and maybe, it was brought to them that it was bullying, they investigate and there's no suspensions, we would not have data on that. Only suspension data where it was deemed bullying, because we do report that to the ministry.
Superintendent Overholt.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I guess the only way we might be able to decipher some data is staff is required to fill out a form that they believe could lead to suspension. So if a staff, then give it to the principal. So those forms could give us some data. Have we tallied those pieces of information that goes to our administrators? No, but that would be one way, and it's not just bullying, it's any range of behaviors that could possibly lead to suspension, that a staff member, if they witness it, would be required to send that to the principal, and then the principal would have to respond to that written form and follow up with that. So that would be the only way. Again, it's not specific to bullying.
I have Trustee Moran, then Trustee Rowe.
Trustee Quinn's point, is it possible for us to get on every board meeting or every month or every quarter some of those stats to us either in camera or in the public session? I don't know what would be most appropriate depending on the level of information required, but I think sometimes we react to incidents, and I'm sure staff are doing everything to keep, bullying incidents to a minimum, but I think trustees, want to know or get more information on that as well.
Trustee Rowe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think stats are valuable at all, simply because, as we've heard all these qualifications, every case depends on the background information, and the background information determines the reason and reasons involved, and it could be repeated. If you got stats, it could be the same kid or the same couple of kids going at it over and over and over again, so you can't just say there's 52 different incidents. We don't know. So that's the purpose of this suspension of the discipline committee, is to listen to the cases from this child's point of view. They get a chance to speak from the parents' point of view and from the administration's point of view, and the reasons why. And we listen openly. We don't know anything about it before the case is brought to us, and then make a decision whether to uphold the suspension or the expulsion. So I don't think the stats, any number just thrown out there, would really tell us anything.
I have Director Dawson, then Trustee Michael.
Through Mr. Chair, we are required by the ministry at the end of the school year. That's the only time that we do a data pull for suspension. So we'd only be able to give you that like at the beginning of September for the previous school year. So the end of June, beginning of July, or into July is when our IT department does a pull from all the schools, and it takes all those suspensions, and we could tease out the ones that were suspended for bullying and give that to trustees in the fall.
Trustee Michael?
I haven't heard the word confidential once. I was under the understanding that this would be a confidential matter, like it wouldn't come before the board if a child was in a bullying incident.
Trustee Quinn?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The suspensions are the extreme cases. I think you talk a lot about mediation at the classroom level and then mediation at the principal's level in the school before parents are involved, and there's discussions, and before we get to the level of suspension. But if we're looking at if this policy has any effect, I don't think we can just look once a year at how many suspensions we had, or at a twice or a bi-yearly tell them from me survey of the students. I think we want to know how many parents are concerned about the safety of their children in their own school, if they are going and complaining to the principal about bullying incidents, if the students themselves are complaining about bullying incidents, and if it's being solved at the school level. So I think we do have to have some kind of reporting or some kind of aggregation of numbers so we can see if reports of bullying are up, or reports of bullying are down, or if reports of bullying are following different patterns in different communities, in different schools, or this policy, as well written as it is, might not be serving its purpose.
I have Director Dawson, then Trustee Antomasi. Trustee Antomasi?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I hear what Trustee Quinn's saying, and I understand this. My concern is bullying takes all shapes, forms. There's exclusion, and there's physical bullying, there's verbal bullying, there's bullying in every which direction. And I don't know how we would get a report. I mean, unless we sort of hit a threshold of something where we have a definitive definition of what we're looking for. I mean, bullying happens all day, every day, in every school that I've walked through. So I don't know what kind of report we're looking for. Unless we put some kind of definition on this, there's all kinds of bullying and all different degrees of bullying. So I really don't know. It's so operational, and little Johnny doesn't want to play with me today, and it's reported to the teacher. Does that have to be tapped? I mean, it can get really ridiculous, and it can get very tedious. So I'm really not sure what trustees are looking for on this one.
Trustee Carabella?
Thank you. I would say not the smaller things that are solved at the classroom level, but I think some way of measuring where we are going and to see if this policy is effective, I think have value.
Superintendent Pinelli?
We do have measurements, and we do know, again, we have been tracking bullying since the bullying policy, and the ministry has given us the go-ahead, and the surveys are indicating, and the survey is coming from students anonymously and from parents, because parents are also asked. So we do have a benchmark as to how we're doing as a system. I do want to caution again, and a conversation, we do have a very clear definition in our policy in the Education Act. What the issue that arises, which is very difficult for anyone to monitor or to track, and that is that individuals have different perceptions of what bullying is. And that is virtually impossible. So a parent may come in because, as Trustee Antomasi mentioned, Johnny doesn't want to play with someone else, and they're coming into the principal and saying, well, my child is being bullied. Is that really bullying? So people's interpretation of bullying is what is very difficult to monitor and to gauge. But I don't want the trustees to think for a minute that we are not monitoring. We are monitoring, and we are doing very well if we take a look at where we've been putting our energy. We have been putting our energy on awareness, and that's what the ministry wants for us as a system, as a society. Awareness, if we're going to make any gains in bullying, we need to empower students. And I think if you look at our data, and you look at our suspensions, and you look at the incidents that are coming to our attention, they're going down. And we are getting student voice. We are empowering the bystanders. We are getting them involved. And that's what is going to make a change long-term for us and as a society. So I don't see how we can start monitoring every little thing in a school, because that is virtually impossible. I'd rather see us put our resources, as we have been doing, on the proactive, and that's what we should be continuing to do.
I have Trustee Trites, Rabenda, Superintendent Overholt, and then Trustee Quinn. Trustee Trites.
Just my first point through you, Mr. Chair, is, so did we make a determination that we're going to get whatever stats or whatever we're collecting at the end of June, that we're going to have it come back to the board? Was that determined? No?
Director Dawson offered to present this in September each year.
Oh, good. Okay. And then the other thing, it's a point, page 41, the very last bullet. The board acknowledges that an open and ongoing dialogue among the principals, school staff, parents, and students is an important component in creating a positive school climate in which everyone feels safe and respected. Maybe it's less subjective and more, being a copulative verb, being more of a creating a positive school climate in which everyone is safe and respected, because that's the goal, to have safe schools, environments where people are respected. Feelings, they're a little more subjective, where is that's our intent. And of course, it'll never be over. We understand that. So a word change to in which everyone is safe and respected.
Page 41. Trustee Rabenda. Superintendent Overholt.
That's you, Mr. Chair. When Bill 113 came into effect in regards to bullying, one of the requirements was a survey had to be done every 2 years. And that's where we incorporated and purchased the rights to tell them from me. Every board in the province is required to do that, and specifically was related to bullying. And it was for that format that we were going to get statistics, we were going to get student feedback and input, and I think that's the important piece is finding out from students how they are feeling at school, and that's where we do have that data. We have monitoring reports that we have, I believe, from 2014 and 2016, that we can look at those pieces of data in which we can bring here, and I think we have brought to the board, and we'll continue to do that every 2 years. So that is a piece that we are required to do, and we continue to do that. And that was a piece of getting that piece of information from, again, our students, which I think is the key piece, is finding out from them their perception of what's going on at their school so that the school can have the data, but also we as a system can have it as well.
Trustee Quinn.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. When I look at Section 3 on page 42, which is in the requirements say that there are procedures in place to allow students and staff to report bullying incidents safely. So we have a procedure and a way for students and staff to report bullying incidents. So there's something we could count. How many reports of bullying incidents have we had? And the next bullet is a comprehensive intervention strategy. How many times have we had to intervene at each school? And then providing support for students who have been bullied. How many students have we had to provide support to? So these are things we could count and could measure and could report back to us publicly or in the private session if necessary. So, a broad survey every second year with questions that I'm not really already comfortable with is one thing. But if we have these things going on and we're not measuring them, I think that we're not doing an effective job of prevention if we're not monitoring on a regular basis where incidences are happening. If we had a school that had more than others, maybe superintendents already know this information, but it hasn't been brought to us at this table. So that's what I'm asking the answer for, perhaps directly to the director. How could we get more information on bullying?
And I have Director Dawson next on my list.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We'll take that back and figure out how we can report back to you. Just so you know about the Tell Them From Me, Superintendent Overholt said we do it every 2 years, and we're kind of past the point now where we can rely on this external agency. So our research department is looking at actually developing our own in-house survey because we have the capacity now to do that in a very effective way where we can choose our own questions and be more specific as to the areas. So just a heads up that next year will be the last year that we plan to use TTFM, Tell Them From Me, and then we're going to look at investing in a survey, school climate survey, an in-house one. So we bought 3 years worth of this survey because we didn't have the capacity at the time, and it was the one that the ministry was directly aligned with what the ministry was asking us to do, so that's why we went ahead.
I think the question I'm hearing from a lot of board members is which data elements is prescribed to be collected, which data points does the ministry expect us to report on. They must prescribe that, and it must be on a form somewhere where it can be translated into a database or a spreadsheet. Tell Them From Me survey is the data collection point, and okay. Trustee Trites.
Thank you. So it's been a long day. Good day, though. So page 41, did we agree that when it comes back or when we vote at it at the board meeting next week that everyone feels everyone is safe and respected? That's a change we can make? Who am I looking at? Mr. Superintendent Pinelli or Superintendent Overholt?
That's okay, that change?
Great. Well, but we're going to switch out the words.
It's a principle.
Yeah, so in which everyone is safe and respected. Thank you, great.
Superintendent Pinelli.
Anyone to walk away thinking that the Tell Them From Me survey is done every 2 years and then we just put it on the shelf and nothing is done with it, okay? Let's be perfectly clear. Trustee Carabella, you talked about the Safe Schools Action Team. The goal and the direction is exactly that they are to work on the results that the school is getting with the Safe Schools team, which is made up of the administration, student representation, parent involvement, in talking about how they're going to address the data that they have collected by the students and their voice in terms of the proactive measures that are going to be implemented in that school. And each school is different. So it isn't that it's just collected and no one does anything. It is incorporated as part of the planning in terms of how to move forward in addressing whatever the issues are at that particular site. And as we've shared with the board, in most sites, bullying is not front and center. But we can bring back that data for the Board of Trustees to share with you.
Okay, I'm going to try to move the meeting along a little bit here. I'm going to call a vote on item 3.7 now. So the only amendments are what you see in red, and the resolution is to bring this back to May 16th. Everyone in favor? Anyone opposed? I see no one opposed. Okay, no discussion items, information items. We'll move down and we'll ask Superintendent Overholt to prioritize these as best he can. I think he's got a plan for what's the highlight here.
To you, Mr. Chair. The first procedure you have there is the school boundary review process, and then from the discussion in regards to the policy, we will be making some adjustments to the procedure to incorporate some of those statements into the policy. But just to quickly recap what this new procedure would have in place, obviously a number of definitions that people would need to know in regards to the school boundary review process. Those are all there for you. I'm not going to go over there. But the three different processes talks about a minor school boundary review process, and it would require different timelines for each one. Some would require less time than others. All would require a community consultation piece, a committee to be looked at. So for the first one, a minor boundary review, you're looking at the possibility, and then there's an example of an area that's between two schools that we know that area needs to be moved from one school to another. So we would classify that as a minor boundary review because there's limited number of students that are going to be moving. Wouldn't be a lot of options that are available for that. So that would be the minor process. New development holding area, school boundary review. Obviously, we look at Milton or St. Gregory the Great, where we've had new schools built in the development. That process would look a little bit different than the previous one. And then the last one is a standard boundary review. If you remember last year when we had the Georgetown boundary review, we had 3 schools involved: St. Catherine, St. Bridget, Holy Cross, where a number of schools were affected. That would obviously be a little bit longer process to go through, and those timelines are there for you. So we'd be happy to answer any questions related to that procedure if you have any.
Trustee Carabella?
Thank you. I was just commenting on the word, the minimum process, like 4.1.3, the minimum process. So you're saying that more things could be added for, okay, this is like the minimum.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on.
The other two procedures before the last one are spec ed related. I don't know if the special education team want to speak to that.
Sure. To the psychoeducational, the procedures are just certainly in line with what the policy was, just updates to what our current existing best practices are in alignment with legislation. I will, though, note further to Trustee Quinn's points in the policy discussion about the child abuse and protection of students. The procedure as it stands is really about reporting to CAS and the procedures that accompany that. The main change that we had with the procedure was just to make sure that we clarify that our procedures in Halton Catholic are aligned with all other reporting processes in which staff are always prepared to provide information when requested by CAS. The one thing I'd like to just maybe make a note of at Trustee Quinn's suggestion was on page 4 of 4, we could add, because this administrative procedure is about child abuse and the protection of students, because we're talking about the protection of students, to Trustee Quinn's point about when students are taken from school, we could add 6.0, so a new heading talking about the removal of students from school from CAS and embed in that procedure the making sure that we are adequately using the student's OEN number and using that as a procedure to help our school administration when CAS show up at the school. So to address Trustees Quinn's concern and to be able to embed into procedure. So we'll add that to what's already there. Sound good?
Superintendent overall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the last procedure, school staff meeting procedure. It's been a while since this has been reviewed, 2011, but there's not many changes to it. We're just looking at addition of the requirements as to why we are holding those staff meetings, addition of certainly PD, student well-being and achievement, but also addition of educational assistants and our designated early childhood educators who weren't in our schools at the time when this procedure was back in 2011. So incorporating them into our staff meetings, it's important that they are part of that as well. So that's incorporated into the procedure.
Thank you. Is there any consequence for meetings that go beyond 1.5 hours in length?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm sure we'll hear it from our unions if there is.
Trustee Quinn.
That was this seemed to be mandated by some other document. Who's invited, what the length of time is, what the policy is for giving notice, having agenda items sent out in advance. Is this written somewhere else in a collective bargaining agreement or some other place where this procedure is following another policy somewhere else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no policy related to school staff meetings. It is just the procedure. What areas were you looking at? Sorry, Trustee Quinn.
Perhaps in the collective agreement it says that staff can't meet for longer than an hour and a half, that they must have a agenda presented to them before the meeting, that they. I'm wondering if those are there.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, it wouldn't be in the collective agreement. It is in our procedure. That is a requirement of at least once a month that they have a meeting that they attend, and then those other areas specifically to the staff meeting. So nothing.
Anyone else? We have upcoming agenda items, policies on banking, school name selection, electronic meetings, school board trustee election guidelines, teacher supervision, cross-panel sharing of information, alcohol at school board sanctioned events, off-premises reimbursement of board business, reimbursement, employee assistance program, strategic plan policy. Any discussion about any of these? One point I can say about the last two items, the employee assistance program, there is a motion coming up at the next meeting. The idea there is that the benefits funding has changed, so that at some point the employee assistance program will need to change. So based on the RFP motion that's on the agenda for next week. And then strategic planning, I don't know if you have the document, but there was a document given at the last or two policy meetings ago about strategic planning. Any miscellaneous information? Any correspondence? Seeing none. Any new business? Seeing none. Motion to excuse absent committee members. Everyone's here. Motion to adjourn. Trustee Quinn, seconded by Trustee Rowe. All in favor? And I see no.
If you'll join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's a springtime prayer. For flowers that bloom about our feet, for tender grass so fresh, so sweet, for song of bird and hum of bee, for all things fair we hear or see. God our Father in heaven, we thank Thee. For blue of stream and blue of sky, for pleasant shade of branches high, for fragrant air and cooling breeze, for beauty of the blooming trees. God our Father in heaven, we thank thee. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.